Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a moment about a man with no friends, because some of you in this room know exactly what that feels like. You look around, your phone is quiet, nobody's checking on you, nobody's calling your name, and you start wondering what's wrong with me. But I came here to tell you tonight, sometimes nothing is wrong with you at all. Being alone is not the same as being lonely, and that misunderstanding has broken more people than failure ever has. A lot of folks panic the moment the room gets quiet, the moment there's no one to call, text, or sit beside them, because they confuse silence with emptiness. But silence is not empty, it's full of answers. Loneliness is when you feel unseen even in a crowd, when you laugh with people but go home hollow. Being alone, on the other hand, is simply the absence of company, not the absence of value. Some of the most focused, disciplined, and self-aware people you'll ever meet learned who they were in seasons where nobody was around to distract them from the truth. When you're alone, you stop borrowing identity from other people. You're no longer defined by who approves of you, who laughs at your jokes, or who validates your pain. You begin to hear your own voice instead of the noise of opinions. That's uncomfortable at first because it forces you to face yourself without filters. But that's where strength is built. You start learning what you actually want, not what keeps others comfortable. You learn how to sit with your thoughts without running from them, and that skill alone will save you from a lifetime of bad decisions made just to avoid being by yourself. A lot of people stay in unhealthy friendships, fake relationships, and draining environments because they fear being alone more than they fear losing themselves. They would rather have company that weakens them than solitude that sharpens them. But growth doesn't happen in crowds. It happens in quiet, repetitive, disciplined moments when nobody is watching. Being alone gives you the space to work on your weaknesses, refine your vision, and develop emotional independence. You stop needing people to fill gaps that only purpose can fill. There's also clarity in being alone. When everyone leaves, excuses leave too. You can't blame your lack of progress on distractions or drama anymore. You see clearly what you're doing with your time, your energy, and your potential. Alone time exposes habits, both good and bad. It shows you where you're strong and where you've been avoiding responsibility. And while that truth can sting, it also empowers you because now you know exactly what needs to change. Being alone teaches patience. You learn how to wait without complaining, how to keep showing up even when no one is cheering. That kind of patience builds resilience. It trains you to move forward whether you feel motivated or not. And when life inevitably puts you in moments where support is limited, you won't collapse because you've already survived standing on your own. People who master being alone don't become cold, they become selective. They don't hate people, they just don't depend on them for identity or peace. They understand that companionship should add to their life, not replace their sense of self. That's why when the right people finally do enter their life, those relationships are healthier, stronger, and rooted in mutual respect instead of emotional neediness. So if you're alone right now, don't rush to escape it. Don't label it as loneliness unless it truly is. Use it, build in it, grow in it. Because being alone is often the training ground for the version of you that won't break when life gets quiet again. God removes people to prepare you, not to punish you, and that truth is hard to accept when the separation first happens. When people walk away, when friendships fade without explanation, when the circle you trusted suddenly feels empty, the first thought is always, what did I do wrong? But many times you didn't do anything wrong at all. What's happening is that you're being repositioned. Preparation often looks like loss before it looks like progress because growth requires space, and space is created when certain people are no longer around. Some people are assigned to a chapter, not the whole story. They were meant to walk with you for a season, help you learn something, then exit once that lesson was complete. But when we get emotionally attached, we try to keep people beyond their expiration date. That's when pain shows up. God sees the future you can't see. He knows where you're going and who can survive that journey with you. When He removes people, it's often because they can't handle the pressure of the next level, Or worse, they would slow you down once the weight of responsibility increases. Preparation requires focus, and focus is hard to maintain when you're constantly managing other people's expectations, emotions, and limitations. Some friends only know how to relate to the old version of you. They're comfortable with who you were, not who you're becoming. So when growth begins, friction begins. God removes those connections not out of cruelty, but out of protection. He's shielding your mind from doubt, your heart from distraction, and your purpose from unnecessary conflict. There are also moments when people are removed because you leaned on them more than you leaned on God. You trusted their presence more than divine direction. And when that support disappears, it forces you to strengthen your faith, your discipline, and your inner stability. You stop outsourcing your courage. You stop waiting for permission. You learn how to stand when there's nobody there to hold you up. That kind of preparation builds spiritual muscle, and muscle is only built under resistance. It hurts because separation feels personal. Silence feels like abandonment. But preparation is rarely gentle. Athletes don't get stronger with light weight, and purpose doesn't develop in comfort. When God removes people, He's clearing the room so you can hear instruction. He's closing doors so you don't walk into places you're not meant to stay. He's teaching you how to depend on vision instead of validation. And once the preparation is complete, you begin to notice something powerful. You're calmer. You're clearer. You're no longer chasing people who don't choose you. You're no longer begging for loyalty or explaining your dreams to those who can't see them. You move with quiet confidence, knowing that if God brought you through the isolation, He can bring the right people into your life at the right time. What feels like removal is often realignment. What feels like rejection is often redirection. And what feels like loneliness is sometimes the evidence that you are being prepared for a level of purpose that requires strength, clarity, and independence before company ever returns. Focus grows when distractions leave, and that lesson is usually learned the hard way. Most people don't realize how scattered they are until everything and everyone disappears. When the noise fades, when there's no one calling your name or pulling at your attention, you suddenly notice how much energy you used to give away. Conversations, drama, opinions, expectations, all of it quietly drains focus. Once those distractions are removed, the mind finally has room to lock in on what actually matters. Distractions don't always come dressed as problems. Sometimes they come as people you love, routines you're comfortable with, or habits that feel harmless. But comfort can be the enemy of progress. When you're surrounded by constant interaction, your goals take a back seat. You delay dreams because you're busy maintaining relationships, pleasing others, or explaining yourself. When those distractions leave, there's nowhere to hide. Your purpose moves to the front of the room, demanding attention. In the absence of noise, discipline becomes clearer. You start structuring your time instead of reacting to it. You notice how powerful consistency is when nothing interrupts it. Focus isn't about motivation, it's about repetition. And repetition is easier when there's no chaos pulling you in different directions. That's why isolation often produces breakthroughs. The mind sharpens when it's not constantly switching between demands. When distractions are gone, you also begin to see how much of your energy was spent on things that never moved you forward. You stop confusing activity with productivity. You learn the difference between being busy and being effective. Focus teaches you to say no, even to good things, so you can say yes to the right things. That clarity changes how you move, how you speak, and how you decide. There's a mental toughness that develops in this phase. Without distractions, excuses lose their power. You can't blame lack of time or support anymore. It becomes you versus your potential. That confrontation is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. It forces you to take ownership of your growth. Focus builds confidence because every small win proves you can trust yourself to follow through. As focus deepens, vision sharpens. You don't just see what you want, you see how to get there. The steps become clearer, the path becomes quieter, and in that quiet, doubt loses its volume. When your attention is locked in, outside opinions stop controlling your direction. You're no longer reacting to life, you're designing it. Distractions leaving isn't loss, it's leverage. It gives you the mental space to refine your craft, strengthen your habits, and align your actions with your goals. Focus grows in that space, and once it does, nothing else competes with the clarity that comes from knowing exactly what you're working toward. Self-belief is built in isolation, not in applause, and that truth surprises a lot of people. Most folks think confidence comes from encouragement, praise, and someone constantly reminding you of your worth. But real self-belief doesn't show up when people are watching. It shows up when nobody is there to reassure you. When you're alone, there's no audience to impress and no one to lean on. It's just you and your commitment to keep going even when doubt starts talking loud. Isolation forces you to confront your weaknesses honestly. There's no hiding behind excuses or other people's opinions. You begin to notice the habits that sabotage you and the discipline you've been avoiding. At first, that realization can feel heavy, even intimidating. But each time you choose to improve instead of retreat, belief starts forming quietly. Confidence isn't built by saying, "I can," once. It's built by proving it to yourself repeatedly in private. When you're alone, you also learn how to trust your own decisions. You stop asking for approval before every move. You stop needing someone to co-sign your dreams. That independence strengthens your mindset. You realize that even if nobody agrees with you, you can still move forward. That's powerful. Self-belief grows when you see yourself survive uncertainty without collapsing. Isolation teaches patience with yourself. Without external pressure, you move at a pace that allows growth instead of burnout. You learn that progress doesn't have to be loud to be real. Small improvements stack up when nobody is rushing you or judging your timeline. Over time, that patience builds confidence because you're no longer comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel. There's also a courage that forms in isolation. When no one is cheering, continuing becomes an act of bravery. Every step forward feels earned. You begin to understand that belief isn't a feeling, it's a decision. You decide to show up, to work, to try again even when motivation fades. And every time you do, your trust in yourself deepens. Isolation strips away false confidence too, the kind that depends on validation. What remains is quieter but stronger. It doesn't shake when opinions change or support disappears. It's rooted in experience, not compliments. You know what you can handle because you've already handled it alone. That's why when life eventually puts you in rooms full of people again, you walk differently. You don't need to prove yourself. You already know who you are. Self-belief built in isolation doesn't beg for attention. It carries certainty. And that certainty becomes unshakable because it was forged when nobody else was around to give it to you. Not everyone is meant to go with you. And understanding that truth can save you years of frustration and heartbreak. Many people assume that loyalty means carrying everyone from your past into your future. But growth doesn't work that way. As you evolve, your priorities change, your mindset shifts, and your tolerance for certain behaviors disappears. Some people simply don't fit the direction your life is taking, and forcing them to stay only creates resistance. People connect to you at the level they meet you. Some knew you when you were uncertain, struggling, or settling. They learned how to relate to that version of you. When you begin to rise, when discipline replaces comfort and purpose replaces excuses, the dynamic changes. Suddenly, your growth makes them uncomfortable. They may not say it out loud, but their energy shifts. Support becomes silence. Encouragement becomes criticism. That's not betrayal, that's misalignment. Trying to take everyone with you often means shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable. You delay decisions. You doubt progress. You explain yourself too much. All of that costs energy that should be invested in your purpose. Growth requires momentum, and momentum is lost when you're constantly looking back to see who's still following. Sometimes separation isn't about cutting people off. It's about accepting that paths naturally diverge. There's also a weight that comes with carrying people who aren't prepared for the journey. Every new level brings new pressure, responsibility, and expectations. Some people enjoy the idea of success but can't handle the discipline it demands. They want the view without the climb. When you continue forward, That imbalance creates tension. Letting go becomes an act of wisdom, not selfishness. Understanding that not everyone is meant to go with you frees you from guilt. You stop feeling responsible for other people's comfort at the expense of your calling. You learn that love doesn't always mean proximity. You can wish people well without walking the same road. That emotional maturity protects your peace and keeps your vision clear. As you move forward, you also become more discerning. You recognize who supports your growth and who only supports access to you. You stop confusing history with destiny. Just because someone has been in your life for a long time doesn't mean they belong in every chapter. Each season demands different strengths, and different people bring different capacities. Accepting this truth doesn't make you cold, it makes you focused. You no longer waste time trying to convince people to grow with you. You move forward with gratitude for who helped you get started and courage to continue without them. Because the journey ahead requires alignment, and alignment only comes when you allow each person, including yourself, to walk the path they're truly meant to walk. Purpose attracts the right people later, even when it feels like everyone has left for good. In the early stages of growth, purpose is quiet. It doesn't come with applause or instant recognition. It demands work, patience, and belief before there's any visible reward. During this phase, many people disappear because there's nothing for them to benefit from yet. That absence can feel personal, but it's actually necessary. Purpose needs room to develop without interference, doubt, or dependency. When you commit to your purpose, your energy changes. Your decisions become intentional. Your time becomes protected. You stop moving randomly and start moving with direction. That shift naturally filters people out. Those who thrive on chaos, gossip, or comfort no longer feel connected to you. At the same time, people who are aligned with growth and vision haven't arrived yet, because you're still becoming the person who can meet them. Purpose works quietly before it works publicly. Many people want connection before they have clarity. They want support before they have direction. But when people enter your life too early, they can distract you from the work that needs to be done first. Purpose attracts people at the right time, not the convenient time. Once you're grounded in who you are and what you're building, the relationships that come into your life are healthier. They're based on shared values, not emotional need. As purpose develops, it sharpens discernment. You recognize the difference between people who admire your journey and people who want to walk it with you. The right people don't rush you or pressure you to be smaller. They respect your focus. They understand your discipline. They add to your vision instead of competing with it. That kind of connection can't be forced. It's earned through alignment. When the right people arrive, you're no longer desperate to keep them. You're secure enough to let relationships grow naturally. You don't cling and you don't chase. You meet people from a place of wholeness instead of lack. That changes everything. Conversations become deeper. Trust becomes easier. Boundaries are respected because you know your value. Purpose doesn't just attract people, it attracts the right environment, opportunities, and timing. It places you in rooms where you're understood instead of tolerated. And when you look back, you realize the isolation wasn't emptiness, it was preparation. The quiet season shaped you so that when connection returned, you were ready to receive it without losing yourself in it.